Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our live session today. My name is Larissa. I'm an event planner at Reactor, joining you from Brazil. Before we start, I have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. This session is being recorded and will be available to view on demand here on the Reactor YouTube channel within 48 hours. Keep an eye on the chat. We'll be dropping help links and checking for questions for our moderators to answer. I'll now turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you all, and let's welcome Valerie and Alexi.
Hello,
Hey,
everybody. Hello, hello,
hey.
hello. How is everybody doing? Excited about the session? What about you, Valerie? Are you excited about
I'm
today's session?
super excited. I really
Yeah,
was looking forward to this.
me too, me too. We have a lot of exciting topics to talk about today. But yeah, should we move to the introductions? And because I'm a gentleman, I let ladies go
Ah,
first, of course. So let's start with you, right?
let's start with me then. Thank you. I'm Valerie. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm a data platform MVP and I work with Power BI. So I'm very much front end oriented, data analysis, that kind of things. And I create all kind of content about that. I put the links there and I think they will also be in the chat. So if you're interested in that work, have a look there. And I'm here with Alexi.
Yes. So my name is Aleksi Partanen, and I'm a data platform MVP like Valerie. I'm from Finland, and I work for a company called Norin, and I do actually quite a lot of stuff in the community. Mainly, some people might know me from YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, Aleksi Partanen Master Microsoft Fabric, where I teach Microsoft Fabric-related topics. Then I have my learning community, Fabric Forge, that I just founded. Can be found at school.com/fabricforge. There we have like a lot of like hands-on tutorials for Fabric and those kind of things. So if you're interested in learning Fabric hands-on, that is a place to go. And then I have my CertiAce platform. That is a platform that provides these kind of a high quality practice questions for certification exams like DP700 and DP600. We have there, for example, timed practice exams with case studies for both of these exams. So very helpful resource if you are preparing the certification exams. And then I also run a Discord community for Fabric, and I have some other resources as well, and those can be found by going to the link tree with that QR code that is on the screen or using that link there. But yeah, maybe that's about me. Maybe we can move to our moderators. So actually today we have 3 moderators. We can only see 2 here, but we have Chris there, and then we have Sahir, and then we also have John, who was added at the last minute, and that's why we don't have John here on the slide, but he's also in the chat, and those moderators will answer to all of your questions about Fabric or the topics that we cover there. So they are very knowledgeable, so please ask questions from them. And also me and Valerie try to answer some of the questions here live as well if we have time, but let's see how the session goes, because this is a live session and we have not planned this to the minute, so we have to see how it goes. But let's see, maybe we can start going. So what's happening like during next upcoming weeks here? There are several sessions happening. For example, we have now this session. So do you want to work with Microsoft Fabric, where we talk about working with Microsoft Fabric, like data carriers, certifications, and those kind of stuff. And then tomorrow we have this being a data analyst in the era of AI. Very interesting session. We actually have two different options for that session. And then we have these certification specific sessions coming up on January 27th and February 3rd. And then we have more sessions coming up about like being a Fabric analytics engineer coming up in like February. But yeah, you can find more about those sessions by going to that aka.ms/fabshirt/live or scanning that QR code. Yeah, let's move forward.
These are so many great sessions. It's really unbelievable. I really love that we are doing this, not just us doing this session, but all
Yeah,
these sessions in general. There's so many possibilities to learn. It's
yes.
amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is truly amazing.
And something else what you can learn or what is something that you can participate is the Power BI Data Viz World Championship. It's back. And if you scan the QR code or go to the website, you can find more information. And it has actually already started. We are done with the first round, but there are more rounds to come. So if you're more like me, a front-end data visualization person, have a look there and try to participate. Even if you're new, just give it a try. I think that's really, really nice to learn new stuff. And if you want to learn new stuff, we have more. Like there's so much going on.
so much stuff.
Yeah. Because you can also join a free instructor-led hands-on workshop. We have Fabric Analyst in a day, we have real-time intelligence in a day, and they're for free. So you can spend a day really learning about Fabric or real-time intelligence, that specific part. So also have a look there if you're interested in that. And of course, we also have some vouchers for you because it's nice to learn all that stuff, but it's even better to get certified. And you can get certified for free. Scan the QR
For
code.
free?
Yeah, for
Really?
free. You just have to scan the QR code, go to the website, and fill in some information. And then you need to take the exam in the next month. But we have all the sessions, so you can learn a lot. And then you can really try it for free. And I think that's really, really nice because that also makes it easier to try it. So
Yeah. I was just about that. If you need some resources, Valerie has a great YouTube series for DP700, and I have also a series for DP700. So please use those resources when preparing for that exam, for example.
Yeah, we prepared all the videos for you to learn it. And there's something else because you are going to do something awesome. You're going to FabCon, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going there. I will be speaking at this FabCon Atlanta. It will be in March. I was actually in both FabCons last year. First one was in Vegas, and then the second one was in Vienna. I think those were at least going to the Vegas was one of the best decisions I made last year. It was super fun, amazing. It was my first FabCon. I highly recommend you to participate to the conference. You can meet so many cool people there and attend so many cool sessions and learn a ton there. So this is a big recommendation. And also there is that discount code that you can save $200 with the code FABLIVE when you register. So also use that and save some money. But I really recommend going to the FabCon if you haven't been there ever. Have you been in the FabCons previously, Valerie?
No, I haven't. And I can't be there this year. But I'm a little bit jealous that you're going there because I heard so many good things about it.
You should be. It's an amazing event. You should really come to next one after this if you cannot make to Atlanta. I think the next one is in Europe, in Barcelona, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So.
And that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have all the fun stuff that you can do, but people, of course, joined for this session. And maybe you can tell a little bit about what we are going to cover today.
Yeah, so we are going to cover an overview of Microsoft Fabric to learn a little bit what is Microsoft Fabric for people who are not so familiar with Microsoft Fabric. Then we're going to talk about the role of Fabric Analytics Engineer and also the role of Fabric Data Engineer and what is the difference of those roles. Because if we think about this from the certification perspective, we have those two different certifications, like the Analytics Engineer certification, and then we have the Data Engineer certification. So maybe we just clarify a bit what's the difference between those two roles and what is the difference between those certification paths. And then we discuss some things like how you can get started with Microsoft Fabric and start to learn some of the skills, what are needed to work with Microsoft Fabric and in data overall, and then also discuss some career paths and next steps. And if we have time, maybe me and Valerie can share some stories. How did we end up to working with data and what was our story? But yeah, is something that you want to add about the agenda?
No, this is a lot, and we are trying to cover that in like 50 minutes. We're doing our
50
best
minutes,
here.
yeah. Yes. So this is a live session, and maybe some of you will be watching this on demand afterwards, but let's keep this live and interactive. So if you have like any questions like discussed, please add them to the chat. We have there 3 moderators taking care of them, and we try to also maybe answer some questions live here if we have time, but let's see how this goes. Yes, so next, a quick intro to Microsoft Fabric. So let's talk about Microsoft Fabric and what it is. So basically, Microsoft Fabric is still, I would say, a relatively new data platform product from Microsoft, whatever like a data platform means in the modern AI world, but it is very modern data platform product where you can find your typical data platform stuff like tools for ingesting data and then like modeling and cleaning that data and processing it forward so that you can provide data for business to use for various use cases. So that is like the typical role of the data platform when we think about the word, what it means. But of course, we are now living in the new world of AI, and Microsoft Fabric is also like full of cool AI stuff as well, because like AI really needs data, because without data you cannot really have functioning enterprise AI, and that's why Fabric has baked in some really cool AI features, like we have like AI agents there, and also Copilot is very natively integrated to Fabric so that you can use Copilot to build your pipelines and code for you so that you don't have to do it manually so much and those kind of things. But also in Fabric, we have a lot of like these kind of a more real-time analytic capabilities. Do you want to tell us more about those real-time analytic capabilities, Valerie? I know that you are an expert on those.
Yeah, I love real-time intelligence. It's like all the data that we get near real time, we can visualize it. And that's right in my area of interest, of course, because I like the front end. I'm very familiar with Power BI. And when I saw real-time intelligence, I was like, oh, that's awesome. Now I can combine that. Now I can get all the data in there. And for me, actually, real-time intelligence was the starting point to really work with Microsoft Fabric and get to know what's going on. Because I had all this Power BI knowledge, and then Fabric was announced, and I was like, oh, but that's a lot. There's a lot going on. Where should I get started? And if you look at our slide, you see there's a lot. You can really go into data factory, analytics, databases, but also in like Power BI and all the other things. And it can be so tough to get started. And I often hear people that say, I want to learn Fabric. Like, which part? Where do you want to start? And like everything at once.
Yeah, it's a huge platform.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Like, what is your favorite feature about Microsoft Fabric? What do you like the most?
I still like Power BI the most.
If we exclude Power BI, because I knew that you were going to say Power BI, something else than Power BI.
Well, then I go for Then I go for my real-time intelligence dashboards.
Okay, yeah, I'll accept that answer because I knew that you were going to say, because you come from Power BI background, and then of course every Power BI person loves their Power BI, and it's directly integrated to Microsoft Fabric, right? So it works seamlessly with Microsoft Fabric.
Yeah, but what's your favorite feature?
Actually, I would say that I really like the data virtualization capabilities. Virtualization is a really difficult word for my Finnish mouth, but like those kind of features that you can really bring in data that is actually sitting in somewhere else. Like, for example, using shortcuts. For example, if you have data in some S3 bucket sitting in AWS or something like that, you can just show that data via Fabric and access it like that data was there, but it's actually just virtualized there. So you can use Fabric and OneLake as this kind of a portal for many different types of data that is actually sitting physically in somewhere else than in Fabric, which then reduces the amount of data pipelines you need to build and schedule and maintain. So that's really convenient from my perspective, since I'm like a data engineering guy and I like this kind of platform stuff. So that's my favorite feature.
That sounds so nice. That sounds so nice. And I think this also shows really how broad Fabric is, how much or how many different things you can do. And there's something in there for everyone. I think that's really important to mention.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a huge platform, and what we just discussed here is just like a tiny scratch to the surface.
Yes.
There are like also transactional databases in Fabric, like SQL database and Cosmos DB, but we could spend like many hours talking about Fabric. But basically, it's your modern data analytics AI platform in one single package that should cover it all. So that's how I would summarize it.
Yeah, great summary. Hey, let's go into something more specific. We have a question for the people in the chat before I start to talk about this. What do you think is an analytics engineer, or what does an analytics engineer do? Because we have these certificates like DP600 and DP700, and DP600 is for Fabric Analytics Engineer. And I get asked a lot, like, what does that actually mean? So I'm very curious what people are typing in the chat. Keep typing. I will tell you what I think, what it means. And then I will read later what you wrote there, because I think what an analytics engineer actually does, someone is the bridge between like the data engineering and data analysis. Before you had like data analysts and data engineers, and these were like two roles. And an analytics engineer can actually work or understand both. You don't need to be the expert in both, but you're like the bridge between different roles. And we have a nice picture on the next slide where you actually see a bridge. Because what's happening in today's world? Before, in the past, you had all these silos. People were either engineers or analysts, and everyone was working with their team. And then they needed something from another team, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of frustration, these kind of things. Nowadays, businesses just really need clean data, reliable data. They need that everyone works together. And as an analytics engineer, you actually understand what's going on. You could work with the data models that the data engineers are preparing, but you could also build data models yourself. And you can analyze the data, you can talk about it, but you can also talk to more the IT side of the business and explain what is needed. So you actually translate what is going on data-wise in the business. And this role is really growing. And I know it sounds a little bit vague, and that's also because different businesses fill that role differently. Because if we look at where the analytics engineer fits in the data ecosystem, you see at a lot of places. Because if we look at data, we have our source data, we engineer the data, and then we analyze the data and we present it. We try to tell everyone what's going on, creating the insights. But what you as an analytics engineer are doing is you can work upstream with the data engineers to understand data sources and pipelines. And because you have the business knowledge, you can actually translate that and can really have a look into what do we need data-wise, which data sources make sense, which tables make sense. But you can also work downstream with the data analysts and all the business intelligence people or the people in the business to make self-service possible, or to model the data prepared for orders. You can collaborate across teams. And that's something I actually really like about that role, because you can do so many things. It's not something fixed. Your day always looks different, because one day you have all these discussions about what does the business really need, what does the company really need, and the other day or another hour you're talking to data engineers about which data sources do we have, how do we make that possible, can we make that possible, these kind of things. So if we sum that up, what does an analytics engineer do? We have like 5 core responsibilities. You can model the data for analysis, so you can build it, clean it, get the relationship. So really prepare a good data model that people can work with, that's reliable. You can transform data. So you are able to transform the data, even if it's a little bit messy from the data source, you can make sure that it actually not only looks good, but is reliable and trustworthy. But you also enable self-service analytics, because you can create models for others to use. So you're collaborating across teams. You work with the data engineers, with analysts, with the business. You're like everywhere in the business or in the company, you can add value. And you ensure quality and performance, because you know about all the stuff that's going on. You can document it, you can test it, you can monitor it, you can discuss what's going on. So this is certainly not a boring role.
Yeah,
do,
certainly not.
yeah, you can do a lot. And for me, that's perfect, because I get bored very fast. And this way, a role like this, you can do all kinds of stuff. It's never boring. And you always try to improve and get better.
So could we say that analytics engineer is like almost like this kind of a full stack data person in a sense, or how you would phrase it?
Yeah, in a sense, but I always want to mention here, you don't need to actually be able to do everything 100%.
Yes.
Sometimes it's also enough that you know that certain things can be done. For example, if you talk to data engineers about which data you need, you don't need to be 100% able to get all that data, but if you know what's possible, it makes it so much easier to have the discussion, and that makes working together just a lot easier. So I think that's also good to mention, because otherwise maybe it's a little bit scary if you think I need to know everything 100%.
Yeah, that's like it's you need to maybe understand a lot of things, but you don't need to know how to do everything. So it's not like super scary role in my opinion, but it's a
Yeah.
cool role. You
Yeah.
get to be involved in many different things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really nice. And if you think, or if you now think, I want that role, I want to do that, I want to get certified. How can I get certified? There is this DP 600 certificate. And I think learning for that certificate, or for the exam and getting certified, really gives you a great idea what you need in that role, because it's about maintaining a data analytics solution, it's about preparing data and how you can implement and manage semantic models. So this gives you a really great overview about what is going on. And also part of this exam or certificate is that you get to know a little bit about not only SQL, but also KQL and DAX. So you learn a little bit more. It's not in depth, but you get an idea about what is KQL. You use KQL for real-time intelligence. So if you just wondered about that, that's KQL. So I think learning and preparing for that exam gives you a great idea about what this role also means.
Are you certified with DP600?
Yes, of course, of
Cool,
course.
cool.
Are
Me as
you?
well. Me as well. Yes, yes. Of course, of course. The DAX was the most difficult part for me because I'm not that skilled in Power BI stuff. So it was the most difficult part for me in this exam for sure.
Yeah. For me, it was nice that there also was some DAX because I saw when I first saw KQL, I was like, now I have to learn something completely new. But then I saw it was easier than I thought. But if
And
you have, yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to add, by the way, that this is like also an intermediate level certification, so it won't be super easy. So you definitely need to have some skills to pass it. And if you are very new to this data stuff, I would actually recommend you to start with DP900. That it's an Azure Data Fundamental certification, but it also includes Fabric and Power BI stuff a bit there as well.
Yeah, yeah. And if you have some Power BI knowledge, this will also help you.
Yes, it will definitely help. I agree.
Yeah. So that's the analytics engineer, and I was curious, Alexi, what is a data engineer then?
Yeah, maybe I should know an answer to this question, right? Yes, so let's talk about data engineering. That is basically my practice that I spent most of my time doing. Even though I'm a data architect, still I do a lot of data engineering, and I love doing data engineering. So I think it's still the most exciting part of my job to build data pipelines and that kind of stuff. But yeah, let's dive deeper into data engineer and compare it a bit to the analytics engineer. So why do we need this kind of a role in the first place to have for a data engineer? What data engineer even does? So basically, during the last decades, maybe if you haven't been living under a rock, you have been noticing that data has been exploding. Data is everywhere. Like everybody is talking about data, this, data that, and data was talked about. It's like a new oil, and now it's like the oil for the AI machine to run and those kind of things. So a lot of data is needed, and businesses rely heavily on data, and that's why we have these different data roles. But yeah, basically, organizations need somebody to make their data reliable, scalable, and have that data available there. So that's basically the core job of the data engineer, if I would describe with my own words. So data engineers in a way bridge this gap to analytics and AI. So data engineers make sure that the data is available there. And maybe we can move to the next slide and talk about where data engineers fit in the data ecosystems. So Valerie just talked about like the analytics engineer, who is this kind of a more, I would say, like full stack person that is involved in bit here and there, and maybe a little bit more on the reporting side of things and closer to business. Data engineer is like more closer to the source systems, because typically organizations have different source systems, and from those source systems we need to extract that data somehow and bring that available for analytics and AI and whatever use case. So data engineers are typically the persons who handle those, like building the connections to the source systems and extracting that data and making sure that that data is cleaned properly, and some data quality checks might be in place, that we have like the reliable and quality data for business to use. And then data engineers collaborate very closely with like analytics engineers and like people who are building reports, so that they collaborate and know what kind of data models, for example, are needed, so that data engineers and analytics people can build those in collaboration, so that the data is in that format that is expected. But yeah, basically data engineers build this foundation for these like analytics and AI use cases, and make sure that that data is there, delivered on time, it's accurate, it's reliable, and make sure that the whole system runs in the background. So data engineers are more kind of these like back-end people compared to the analytics engineer, if I would use that terminology. So they work more on that like back office, and not like that much like where the analytics happen. So what data engineers do? So here we have some core responsibilities of a data engineer. So data engineers design and build and maintain data pipelines, ingest, transform, and integrate data at scale, especially now like a decade ago or something, people used to talk about like big data and that kind of stuff. Nowadays, I think big data is kind of the data that we have there, and it's quite integrated to whole data platform ecosystem. So we no longer discuss big data, because the tools that are used for the big data or were used back then are pretty much integrated, like Spark and those kind of things that are really focused for massive data pipelines and those kind of things. Also, data engineers ensure data quality, consistency, and governance. With data, governance is also typically a big thing, because organizations might have a ton of data, but then we need to have some type of governance for the data, because we cannot just have data lying around everywhere and nobody knows who owns the data and what's the use case for that data. It will become very messy very fast. So in some places, organizations have thought about that they have end up to this situation called like data swamp that you don't have anymore like a data lake or anything, but it's basically a swamp of data and nobody can't find anything there. But that's basically a task where data engineers can help and make sure that those governance practices are in place and data is cleanly stored and organized there. Then data engineers also monitor performance, troubleshoot, and optimize. So basically, when we build data pipelines, we typically build them in like DevOps manner, so that we have multiple different environments. So we first build them in developing environment, then we probably have a test environment where we test them, and then we deploy to production where those pipelines are scheduled and run probably daily there. So data engineers make sure that those pipelines stay up and running and everything works smoothly. Then, of course, data engineering job requires quite a bit of collaboration across teams to deliver that data for business, because it's not that you would get to work in some type of silo alone. You need to collaborate with people. It's very, very collaborative position as well, even though you don't need to be that much involved building those fancy reports that Valerie knows how to build and those kind of things. But if I would be a Valerie's data engineer, I would provide her with high quality data so that Valerie can then do the magic and build those amazing reports on top of that data. But yeah, do you have something to add here?
Yeah, first of all, I would love to work together with you.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But also this data engineering role, it's such a big responsibility also. You are making sure that the data is there and people can work with it and that it's up to date and really high quality. And I think that's also such a great thing. You can really help companies to work with their data, because there's still so many companies that work with data that isn't really clean, or the processes aren't in place yet. But as a data engineer, you can make sure that this changes and you can help companies. So I think that's really, really nice.
Yeah, and if there are like data issues like upstream, then nobody can rely on the reports, because they cannot trust the numbers if the data quality is bad and the data doesn't load or that kind of issue. So data engineering is a really important role and part of the data ecosystem and data processes.
Yeah. And I think if people now think, I want to do that, there's of course also the DP700.
Yes, DP700. So basically, this is Microsoft's latest data engineering certification, and of course, focused on Microsoft Fabric. So this certification covers the stuff that I basically mentioned, but in the Microsoft Fabric context. So, like you get to learn how to ingest and transform data, and securing and managing that like whole solution around that data, and also how to monitor and optimize those solutions. And with this, we have some also similar programming languages that are needed in this exam that were also needed in the DP600. The only difference here is that instead of DAX, we have PySpark. That is like a Python variant for interacting with this Spark engine. So it's a Python API basically for Spark. So you get to write Python and do your massive parallel processing at scale using Spark. So really exciting stuff. And I'm a big fan of like PySpark and doing things on notebooks. So notebooks are quite a heavy focus on this exam, and also data pipelines. And then we're focusing on lake houses and warehouses and those kind of stuff, but also real-time intelligence. So Kusta query language is required in this exam as well, because real-time intelligence is part of this exam as well. And you know what? There is also a lot of overlap between DP700 and DP600. So I would say that if you plan to take either one of these exams, then eventually, or maybe I would say quite right after the exam you took, you should start to prepare for the other one, because many things are overlapping. And that's why it is very easy to take the other exam after you have taken the other, because you don't have to study so much, because you should remember some of the same things you studied already for the other exam. So that would be my recommended strategy, to almost like bundle up the certification process if you aim to get both of these certifications. But like I said, this is also like an intermediate level certification, and I would highly recommend taking the DP900 before this one if you are new to this data stuff and you don't have that much Fabric knowledge. And also many skills that you have maybe learned with other data platform stacks. For example, if you have been working with Azure data platform stack for a while, there is like a tool called Azure Data Factory. It is very much the same tool in Fabric. That's just now a pipeline tool in Fabric. And then if you have been working with Databricks and Notebook or Synapse notebooks, they are very similar to Fabric notebooks, and you basically write also PySpark there. So skills transfer very well here to Fabric as well. So if you have those kind of skills already, so then this exam shouldn't be that difficult. But yeah, do you have something you want to add about this?
Well, you had great advice already, and I would also do these exams right after each other. I started with DP600 because I have the Power BI background, and there was some overlap there from the things I knew. And then I did DP700 because that was a little bit more technical than what I normally do. And just a week ago, someone asked me, like, in which order should I take them? And the person that asked me was very, very technical. So I told them, actually, start with DP700 and then go to DP600, because you have that Power BI part there too, and you maybe don't know that yet. So it also depends on where you are at the moment, which one you should take first.
Yeah, I agree. There is no like one path fits all. You just have to evaluate your own situation and what suits you the best, and start with that, and then go for the other one if you feel like it.
Yeah, and learning and preparing for both exams was kind of fun because there's so much available, and we actually have that information also for you, and we can share a little bit how we actually got started. Because how do you get started? If you just started learning about this, you can't learn everything at once, or I wouldn't advise that. So what can you do? And a few things that I think we both would recommend is, for example, learning by doing. This is something I do a lot. That's also why I do a lot of the YouTube videos that I'm doing, because then I'm telling other people like how this works, and by telling others how things works and demoing stuff, I actually learn more. And people ask questions that I normally wouldn't have asked myself, and then I think that's a really good question. So learning by doing, trying new things yourself helps a lot. And also collaborating, partnering up with others. Like, that's so much fun working together on stuff, learning stuff together, because then you can share your experience, and you can, if you have a question, maybe other people have the same questions, or they had the question before and they already answered it. So I think collaboration and learning by doing for me were like the most important to learn and to actually get certified. And I would really, really recommend also try to get certified, because then you can actually check if the things that you have learned, if you have learned enough, or maybe you see that you have to learn a little bit more about one of these topics, and then you also know that, but otherwise you don't know. And I think it's better to know, like, what are my strengths and my weaknesses, and where do I need to learn a little bit more. What would
Yeah.
you recommend, Alexi?
Yeah, and I would want to add about the certifications. Like, it's very nice that it gives you this clear target to work towards. So it's like and as an end result, you get this cool badge that you can have in your resume, and maybe like some employees could value those, like that you have like this concrete proof that you have learned some skills. But yeah, like said, I totally agree with you, the things you said. So very, very great advice, in my opinion.
Oh, that wasn't the intention. I wanted to
Yeah.
go to this slide, because this is
Yes.
also something I would recommend, and I think you can tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, because like there are a lot of great resources to learn, like Microsoft Fabric and also other Microsoft tools in general. So I would say that you can start with Microsoft Learn. There are like a lot of like learning paths that you can go through, and many of those tailor you towards like getting that certification path. So there are dedicated learning paths for DP600, DP700, DP900, PL300, you name it. Every certification has its own learning path. So uh, maybe, and then there are also a lot of like cool community made resources. Like already mentioned, you have your YouTube videos. I have also my YouTube videos, and then there are other great community members who have produced their very high quality community made resources that prep you different things. Some of those are tailored towards getting certifications. Some of those are tailored maybe building end-to-end solutions or learning other things. But yeah, it is very, I think it is essential to focus, if we think about this in Microsoft Fabric context, to that like workflow that you learn how to ingest the data, you learn how to model the data, and then you learn how to do some analysis and visualize the data. It is very, very, very nice if you could do all of those things at some level, so you can get like all the benefit out of the platform. And that's like at least you should understand all of this flow. I think that's very fundamental when working with data, that at least you would understand each part of that process and what's their role and what are the approximate things that happen there. And like I said, many of the things transfer across platforms and tools. So if you have been working with some other data platform tools and you have this kind of a general data skills, for example, SQL is a thing that is used almost everywhere. It transfers very well to Fabric because in many places you can use SQL. I think you can use SQL even with some real-time analytics stuff to some degree. Of course, KQL is preferred, but there are very much a lot of support for SQL there as well. But yeah, like I said, a lot of things that, and a lot of great resources that you can utilize to learn more. Yes. So, and one of the most important things when learning Fabric is to get hands-on, because I think the hands-on learning is the superior way of learning. At least that's how I learn things when I build things on my own, and I have to like solve the issues and errors on my own, and then I get to learn things. So if I would just watch and listen somebody else to do those things, I wouldn't learn as much by doing them on doing them on my own. So I would highly recommend, if you're aiming to get a certification or like upskilling in fabric in general, just to get that hands-on experience, because that is very essential in my opinion. And there are a few ways how you can get hands-on experience. Of course, the best way is that if you have access to Microsoft Fabric, you have a tenant where you can access Microsoft Fabric. Maybe your organization have their Microsoft Fabric. Basically, if your organization has a Power BI, then you should be able to access Microsoft Fabric if you negotiate a bit with your with your admins there, and they will enable you Microsoft Fabric access. That should be arranged. And also Microsoft Fabric offers free trials so that you can get started for free, so it doesn't have to cost anything to your organization. Also, there are some ways how you could get the free trial on your own, but yeah, you can search those up. But basically, there are some time limitations how old your tenant has to be. I don't remember if it's like 60 days nowadays or 90 days, but something around that time, then you can get your own Fabric trial going on, or then you can use the pay-as-you-go Fabric capacities and use a small one, then it shouldn't generate that much costs. And then there is also this kind of a Fabric Analytics in a Day course that you can attend virtually or in person. And that is also a great opportunity to get some hands-on experience. Maybe Pam and our moderators in the chat can provide more information about the Analytics in a Day course and how you could attend those. But yeah, something you want to add?
No, because I love these Analytics in a Day courses and all these in a day workshops that are available, because especially if you just got started and you want to get an overview, I can really, really recommend them to just listen in for a day, see some things and see for yourself what it's all about. Because I know it can be very scary if you just get started to explore it yourself, because there's so many options. So attending one of these courses can be very, very helpful. And I agree with you, getting this hands-on experience is just very, very important when you really want to learn something.
Yeah.
And I think we have that on the next slide also. The title is a little bit vague, pick a project, but I think it gives a great starting point. Like, okay, now you can get hands-on experience. How to get started? How would you get started, Alexi?
Yeah, basically, I would try to ingest, for example, data from some like openly available APIs. There are like plenty of APIs, or then just maybe use some type of AI tool and generate some mock-up data for me, like some CSV files, and start to use those to build my own data pipelines, and then maybe model that data a bit, and then try to build a report on top of that data. This kind of like a small end-to-end flow to start exploring that and see how I can use these different tools in Fabric together to build this like first end-to-end data solution. That would be like maybe my approach, how I would get started if I would get started with Fabric and I wouldn't have any experience working with Fabric yet. Of course, that already requires some type of data skills in order to do that. I acknowledge that, but maybe then start with a small scale project and maybe pick one of those tools. Maybe start with the Power BI, have some Excel files and data there and try to visualize that, or start from the ingestion part and start to learn about that. Maybe that would be my approach. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with your approach. And I can actually share one of my approaches when I got started with real-time intelligence. I went to the documentation, the Microsoft Learn documentation, and I found like this 8-step tutorial to do real-time intelligence. And they really wrote down in 8 steps where I could get the data, the demo data, up to the last step where you had a real-time intelligence dashboard. And for me, that was a really nice starting point because I could just follow it. Even though I had no experience at that point in real-time intelligence, I could follow these 8 steps. And afterwards, I thought, oh, now I at least know like how it works, what the flow is, what I can expect. So there is a lot available also in the documentation that Microsoft provides, where they already have like these little tutorials. So if you really, really get started, I can recommend having a look at these. Makes it easier.
Yeah, agree.
And that also brings us to our next slide. Use community resources, because there's so much going on in the Fabric community. Like Alexi mentioned, we both have like a YouTube channel, but there are so many other great people that have like YouTube channels. They have blogs, they write tutorials, they provide sample files. You can download stuff that others have created. And the nice thing about that is that you can actually also ask questions. You can ask the people that created the tutorials questions. You can read how they approach something. And something that I would really, really recommend is also share your work. So not only have a look at what other people are doing, but also if you created something really nice, or you just created something and you're really proud about it, share it, because sharing it with other people will help you to get also feedback. And that will help you to grow again and to learn. And it also, at least for me, it gives me that feeling of collaboration, having this Fabric community where you all work on different things and you're doing it together. You're not alone out there. We are all in this and we're here to help each other. And I think that's also one of the things I really like about this community. We really
Me too.
care for each other.
Yeah, I would say Fabric community is super nice, super helpful, and one of the friendliest communities I have been part of, at least.
Yes. Everyone's super helpful. It's amazing. And when you get started, I think something important to know is that you should expect that not everything will be perfect at once. Like, I would love that I could learn everything at once and then I'm just perfect at it, but that's not how it works. Often I learn new things and then I experiment, and some things work, other things don't work, but that's okay. I reflect and then I will just go on and learn more and experiment something more there. And it's a normal process. So that's just really good to know. Also, because everything that we're working with is evolving all the time. So it's okay to sometimes not know things as long as we learn and try it after that. So it's a really normal feeling that you think, oh, that didn't work. Okay, try again, try something else and learn from that. And I know we are a little bit short on time, and there's a section of that we still want to share with you, and that's actually the career path and next steps. Because once you have that certification, you of course want to do something, don't you, Alexi?
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about these different paths. Maybe I could share quickly how I did end up to working with data. So basically, I was studying business at university. I went to study business because I didn't know what to do after I graduated from high school and did my mandatory military service here. I was like, maybe I go study business, and then I applied to business school and got in. And there I studied business and realized that these typical business subjects are not for me. And then I started to interest a lot about like IT related topics and took some few coding classes, and I was like, yeah, programming is really fun and this is something that I really enjoy and like to do. And then I was still doing my bachelor's degree. I was starting to send like these job applications to different open job applications to different IT companies that, hey, I would like to work for you. That do you have any kind of job for me? And then many of those didn't even reply to me. And but then one at least did, and they said that they have this trainee program coming up for becoming this like a data warehouse developer. And then I was like, okay, cool, sounds cool. I don't know anything about data warehousing that much, but it sounds really interesting. And then I got in and started to learn more about data engineering and data warehousing stuff, and worked a few years with other tech. And then I moved to Microsoft Tech and then eventually switched to Norin, where I have been working over 5 years now, and now I'm working there as a data architect. So I have gotten very deep into this data world. And then eventually I started my YouTube channel, went to FabCon, and now I'm here in this live with you. But that's very briefly summarizing that there. What about you? What is your background?
Well, my background is something really completely different from what I'm doing now. I'm a psychologist.
Oh, really?
So I studied psychology, and then I thought, I don't know if I will be happy if I do that full time. Let's explore what else is possible. And I always like data because I wanted to see what's going on. Can we prove what's going on with data? And then I actually started as a data engineer. So really something completely different. And I wasn't entirely happy in that role because I still like talking to the business, talking to people. And I gradually moved to data analytics, data visualization, storytelling, and helping businesses to understand what's going on. So that's a huge change. And I think the second point on our slides really explain what's going on. Early experiences don't lock you in. And I think we both experience that, because just because you have a different background and maybe your background isn't data or IT, like for me, psychology, you can still do all these things and you can still switch. Maybe you are now a data engineer and you want to be more of a data analyst, or the other way around.
Yeah.
That's totally possible nowadays.
Yeah, it is. It is. Very, very good point there. And I think in many schools or universities and those kind of things, they don't directly prepare you some of this stuff that you just have to learn this maybe at job or on your own or those kind of things. I haven't at least seen like a data engineering schools in some like universities or that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. So there are different paths. And I think the most important thing is that we focus on what we can do and what we want to do next, and not so much on the title, but more
Yeah.
on the stuff we like.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think you summarized this slide as well. So maybe we can move to the next
Yeah.
slide.
Let's go.
So, like how to get started, or like these kind of things. So, basically, you could seek for some type of mentorship for some like experienced data professionals for maybe in your local area or maybe online. Like I said, Microsoft Fabric community is super helpful. People are willing to help and point you to the right direction and where the helpful resources are and everything like that. And then also, if you like doing things more locally and face to face, there could be a local user group near you. Those events are typically completely free. Just attend one of those and discuss with people, and they can offer you advice there, and maybe some of them could even offer you a job if you're looking for that kind of thing. That could happen. And yeah, like already third point I kind of covered there, that engage with communities like forums. There are Fabric forums. I have my Discord server, my Fabric school, and those kind of things. So there are a lot of places to find communities online. But yeah, take some steps towards the thing that you want. They could be just small steps, but have some like meaning behind them, and think about what you want to achieve. What is your goal? What is your learning path? And start to build some projects and contribute to community challenges and be part of the community and get started.
And I think a great step is already following a session like this. All these people that are listening in, that's already a first step. And I think that's great. And for everyone that really enjoyed this or wants to learn more, there are, like we said at the beginning, more sessions coming in the next days. So even tomorrow, you have the next one about being a data analyst, but also some sessions about how to get certified, a little bit more deep dive in there. So make sure to follow them. And Like you saw today, we have all these nice moderators in the chat and they answer your questions. And this is such a great way to get all these questions answered and learn something new. Don't forget to get certified. This is really important because you can test and you can check if everything you learned actually is up to the level that, well, it should be. And we have this voucher for you. It's for free, so make sure to get certified. If you're interested in the Data Visualization World Championship, it's still going on. Make sure to have a look at that. And if you want to learn more about real-time intelligence and fabric analyst, we have this in a day sessions that you can also follow for free. And all this information will also be in the chat because this is a lot of information. And if you want to see all these things live, make
Me
sure
live.
that, yeah, if you want to see Alexi live, go to FabCon.
Yeah.
And I think we are right in time. It's exactly 1 hour.
Yeah,
Thank
nice.
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So
And
we
thanks
can end
to
it here.
everyone watching. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Alexi. Thank you all for joining our live session today. And thanks to our moderators who handled all of our questions in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and our experience here at the Reactor. So if you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find the link on the screen or in the chat, and we'll see you in the next one.